And good morning, everybody. How are you today? My name is Javan Miller. Amateur radio call sign is W8UA. And as Carol mentioned, today I'm going to be talking about my two favorite activities in amateur radio, which are experimenting with antennas and operating Morse code. Without further ado, let's dive right into the first topic, which is antenna experimentation. Now, all this fun started a couple years back in 2019 when our family decided that we wanted to set up our first HF station at home. After doing a little bit of research on various antenna designs to see exactly what we could put at our place, we eventually ended up designing and then installing a 40-meter off-center fed dipole in our attic. I have a picture of that here. I just installed it among the rafters, and it actually works quite well in the air, and I still have it up today. But it was really from that point on when I discovered how much fun it was to experiment with antennas and see really how they compared with each other. Now, at the time, I didn't really have a whole lot of room in my budget to spend money on hundreds of feet of wire or, metal tubing or other antenna components or the infrastructure to put them up either, no towers or things like that in my yard. And so I had to find some other way to be able to, test other antennas and experiment with them without, having all that. So that's when I came across and discovered antenna modeling software. After doing a little bit of research on different types of modeling software, I eventually ended up selecting Manigal, which is a free piece of software to be able to model any antenna. What I have drawn up here is a 20-meter Yagi antenna, as you can see, and the way that you enter in the antennas is just by entering in XYZ coordinates for each of the wires. You enter in the start and the end of each wire, and this allows you to draw just about any antenna. Once you do that, then you can go back to the previous window and you can see what you drew in a nice three-dimensional drawing and design just about anything. Once you get that, it basically simulates the antenna and really just tests it in the computer model, and it gives you a bunch of data back, including SWR, gain, impedance, and also gives you that plot over a graph. As you can see here, you can plot that over a frequency spectrum just to see how the antenna performs over that frequency spectrum. The next slide here, I have a picture of a radiation pattern of the antenna that I drew up the 20-meter Yagi. This is super useful not only for optimizing directional antennas like Yagis, log periodics, antennas like that, but also useful for multiband antennas where you're going to have a more complex radiation pattern on some of the higher frequency bands for that antenna, and it's useful to be able to see where your power is going so that you can position your antenna correctly. After I learned the software and kind of became familiar with it, I was able to work on a couple of different projects where I was able to model the antenna, and then also, once I got it modeled, be able to see it physically built as well in the real world and then be able to test it, which was just super cool. I have a couple of examples I'm going to show you today, with the first up being a terminated folded dipole antenna. Shout out to a club member here today who actually selected this antenna for our club's field day event. This allows us to basically, using complex filtering and networks with triplexers, bandpass filters allows us to use up to 5 radios on the single antenna with its broadband nature, low SWR in each of the 5 bands, and get on using our field day event that way. So this was super fun to be able to model the antenna, see it being built, and then get it on the air for the event. The next example I have here is of a 160-meter inverted L antenna that I drew up. Obviously, I'm not able to put this up in my attic or pretty much any other 160-meter antenna because they're pretty big antennas. But I selected something that I could put out temporarily on my yard using, again, a temporary mass structure, which allowed me to put this up on the start of a weekend and be able to operate with it past a couple of days and then take it back down when I was done. So this was great to be able to model. Last example I have here of the antennas is a 6-meter Moxon antenna. And I really enjoy operating up on 6 meters, specifically for sporadic E propagation that's up there. That supports communication around the nation and even around the world at times. And this was a super cool antenna to build and also put up in my attic. And this basically performs like a 2-element Yagi antenna with the ends folded in towards each other, which creates a higher gain front to back ratio and also fits in a more compact space. Well, that wraps it up pretty much for the Morse code segment, and now I want to switch, or for the antenna segment, now I want to switch over to the Morse code, which is my other favorite activity here in amateur radio. So I want to start out here talking about really how I got started in Morse code. Really not the best way. A number of people had told me that, hey, Morse code is supposed to be an audio thing, not visual. I did it anyways. I actually went so far as to create flashcards for every single character, A dot dash, B dash dot dot dot, so on and so forth. And really drilled in all those, the visual dots and dashes for every character. But it wasn't until I came across a piece of software that really drilled in the sound of each of these characters that I was really able to take off and become proficient enough to use it on the air. And once I was able to get on the air, that's really where it got to be a lot of fun. I was able to participate in a couple of on-air activities, including several contests and a number of rag shows as well. A number of the contests that I've been able to operate in, ARRL DX contests, some of the CQ Worldwide contests, but I would say one of my favorite to date has been the CW Operators Club, the CWT, which is every Wednesday. There's 3 or 4 of these hour-long sprints that are active that day, and you're able to get on just to see how many contacts you can make in that really brief period of time. And that was not only a lot of fun, but also great practice to be able to get all those contacts and made in a short period of time. Also, rag shoes were super helpful. In addition to just the random contacts you make on the air and you can chat back and forth, I also was able to be part of a roundtable, which happened every afternoon. I was able to join those for quite some time. And those were super useful because the individuals in this group were chatting back and forth in this roundtable at a super high rate of speed. And I obviously was interested in joining them and being able to get up there and express my interest to one of the participants. And he was kind enough to get with me every afternoon before the roundtable, and we chat back and forth at a slower speed than the group, and he worked with me every day to be able to get my speed up with the group, and that was super useful and super helpful, not only to have fun, but also to be able to get my speed up with Morse code. After becoming fairly proficient myself, I was fortunate to be able to help teach others with their Morse code learning journey. I was able to be a part of the CW Operators Group, CW Academy, and Bruce Lane, K1BG, I'm not sure if he's here today, but he leads that youth effort where he teaches other young people Morse code and gets them on. And I was able to help him with that class and co-teach and get some people introduced to Morse code, which was a lot of fun. Like many other people, I also have collected a number of keys as well, and I want to show you guys a couple of examples of the keys that I have and kind of how I'm able to use them on the air. Up at the top left of the screen, I have a picture of a Vibroplex iambic, or a Vibroplex bug or semi-automatic key. These were actually designed and used before electronic keyers became prevalent. Obviously where the electronics weren't really developed at that time yet. And the way that it operates is you manually make the DAWs yourself, but it automatically makes those dits by swinging a pendulum back and forth, hitting the contact, which allows you to send, again, at a higher rate of speed than with a straight key, which can be seen at the top right. This is a picture of a Navy-style flame-proof key. And this kind of has a cool history behind it. I think this was developed and made in the 40s. And this was, again, designed to be used in an environment, particularly an environment where, if high voltages on the CW or on the key contacts could cause sparks, and that would be a big issue in a flammable environment. So these keys are super cool. Fortunate to be able to use one, and a lot of fun, cool piece of history. The bottom left, I have a picture of a Vibroplex set of iambic paddles. These can be used on the air for higher speed CW, and for contests, rag shoes, things like that. And the bottom right's a picture of very similar to the Vibraplex paddles, but a bencher variant instead. Next key I want to show you guys is a homemade key that I made myself. This was back in 2020, I believe, for Straight Key Night. For those who don't know, that's an event that happens every New Year's Day where people get on with old radios, keys, and get on and try to see how many contacts they can make on Morse code throughout that event. And I decided it'd be fun to make my own key, and that's when I learned a 3D modeling software called Fusion 360. I was able to design this key and then actually 3D print it and use it on the air to make a number of contacts, which was just a lot of fun. Well, that pretty much wraps it up for today. First off, I want to thank Carol Perry for allowing me to be a part of this forum. Thanks to my family for supporting me. Of course, thanks to all of you out there in the audience for being here today. Hope you have a great weekend at Hamvention.